I just started running with that. You know
Right.
what I mean? And that's why I named 6ix9ine first song 6ix9ine.
Ariela, Tekashi 6ix9ine's girlfriend's life was cut short in brutal fashion, and the streets haven't stopped talking since. Now, new footage has surfaced showing 6ix9ine in the hours leading up to the tragedy. What unfolded on August 17, 2025, was a chilling moment that left the hip-hop world rattled to its core. The internet is ablaze with theories about who pulled the trigger and why, with many casting blame on 6ix9ine himself. But what truly went down that day? Let's break it down. Ariela's last ride. When the sun was just rising over the concrete jungle, Ariela La Langosta, a 29-year-old Dominican influencer and nightlife personality, was discovered unresponsive in her vehicle on the Cross County Parkway in Mount Vernon, New York. The discovery stunned the community and sparked waves of speculation. What made the situation even more explosive was her reported link to one of hip-hop's most controversial figures, Tekashi 6ix9ine, a connection many believe may have placed her in harm's way. To grasp how deep this story runs, it's important to understand who Ariela really was. Far from being just another face on social media, she had carved out a name for herself in New York's buzzing nightlife. With over 551,000 followers on Instagram and 115,000 on TikTok, she wasn't just posting selfies, she was building a lifestyle brand. Her content blended dance, fashion, and charisma, making her a recognizable figure across digital platforms. But beyond the screens, Ariela was plugged into the same nightlife ecosystem where rappers, hustlers, and influencers often cross paths, a space notorious for blending clout with risk. She worked in some of New York's most high-profile venues, including Icon New York and Starlets of New York, clubs that attracted celebrities, socialites, and street figures alike. According to sources, this world, glamorous as it appeared, came with its share of tension. The night before tragedy struck, on August 16, 2025, Ariela shared clips from Icon New York, showing her smiling, laughing, and living freely. No one watching those stories could have imagined they would become the last glimpses of her life before headlines changed everything. Her death immediately pulled 6ix9ine into the conversation. Allegedly, their bond was more than casual. While some reports suggest she was romantically involved with him, others claim he referred to her as his sister. This dual narrative highlights the secretive nature of relationships within his circle, where public acknowledgement can be both risky and revealing. What's certain is that Ariela's ties to him weren't surface level. She appeared in the video for his track WAI alongside Angel Dior, Lanier, and Bulin 47, and was spotted with him in 2023 at New York's Tobago Room, public associations that connected her directly to his world. But here's where things get complicated. By 2025, 6ix9ine was not free to roam as he once was. Following a 45-day federal custody stint in late 2024, he was placed under strict probation with electronic monitoring and travel bans. In July 2025, he pleaded guilty to charges related to illicit substances after a raid at his Florida residence earlier that year. With sentencing set for September 2025, his movements were tightly controlled. This means his ability to appear in New York clubs or even be in Ariela's immediate orbit was extremely limited. And yet, despite those restrictions, her death has been tied, fairly or unfairly, to his long trail of street conflicts, informant history, and unresolved beefs. According to observers, this connection has fueled speculation about whether Ariela became collateral in a larger story that was never really hers to begin with. The weight of survival.
When you took the stand, or when you testified,
what I fold on?
when you snitched.
All right, so let me ask you something, son. If you was in that position, what you would have done?
When it comes to Tekashi 6ix9ine, survival has always been the headline. From his early rise as Daniel Hernandez on the streets of Brooklyn, to his transformation into a chart-topping provocateur with rainbow hair and viral antics, his name has been synonymous with controversy. His courtroom cooperation in 2019, testifying against members of the 9 Trey Gangsta Bloods, cemented his place as one of the most polarizing figures in hip-hop. According to sources, Ariela's tragic death in August 2025 has now become entangled in that same web of speculation. What makes this case so complex is that her killing did not happen in isolation. It unfolded against a backdrop of years of tension, retaliation, and shifting alliances that have defined 6ix9ine's world since his federal cooperation. The footage of 6ix9ine defending his decision to fold on his former associates highlights his survival-first mindset.
He's dead. But what's the point, though?
So King Von is a solid and he got killed, right? Then poked out and put 5 in him, right? And he dead, right? So King Von died.
To him, cooperation wasn't betrayal. It was intelligence. He has repeatedly drawn comparisons between himself and fallen rappers like Nipsey Hussle, Pop Smoke, and King Von, arguing that realness in the streets often leads to the grave. This cold philosophy reveals why he considers his approach smarter, even if it earned him the permanent label of a snitch. Several interviews have shown that 6ix9ine is unshaken in his stance, even when faced with criticism from peers, bloggers, and fans alike. His perspective, though widely condemned, is consistent. He views survival as the ultimate victory, no matter the cost to reputation. To him, street loyalty is meaningless if it ends in tragedy. This mindset may help explain why his name is constantly linked to retaliation theories whenever violence occurs around those connected to him. Street commentators argue that Ariela may have been collateral in battles much bigger than her, battles tied to reputations, money, and old grudges. Her alleged connection to both 6ix9ine and Nada Cartier complicates the picture further. Reports describe Cartier as a suspected gang leader with prior arrests and alleged ties to robbery operations known in street slang as Jolopia. According to international outlets, Ariela was reportedly driving a Mercedes G-Wagon with Cartier present but unharmed when she was fatally targeted. Some claim she had set up Colombians for him to rob, leading to deadly retaliation. Police confirmed detaining Cartier after the incident, citing his irregular entry into the U.S. and prior record as part of the investigation. But retaliation against 6ix9ine cannot be ruled out either. Since February 2025, when a fake casket with King Von's name was delivered to his Florida residence, speculation of enemies circling him has only intensified. Ariela's death, for some, fits the pattern of retribution aimed at striking where he is most vulnerable, his inner circle. Allegedly, this was not the first time individuals close to him have faced threats. Multiple reports through hip-hop blogs and social media suggest that over the years, friends, associates, and even family members of 6ix9ine have been targeted online with threats, harassment, and intimidation tactics designed to send him a message. To complicate matters further, the killing occurred during a period when Florida law enforcement reported a rise in organized crime activity linked to illicit substances and territorial disputes. While authorities have not directly tied Ariela's death to these wider battles, the timing and circumstances have fueled rumors that this was not random violence. Law enforcement officials in New York and Florida have allegedly been investigating overlapping networks that combine nightlife economies, illicit substances, and interstate operations, which only adds more weight to theories of organized retaliation. Another factor fueling speculation is the polarized reaction within the hip-hop community. Some industry figures have openly questioned why Ariela, with her rising profile as an influencer and bartender, was so closely tied to 6ix9ine in the first place. Others have suggested she may have been unaware of the full risks associated with his name and his enemies. Online debates have highlighted this divide, with one camp portraying her as an innocent caught in the wrong place at the wrong time, while another insists she may have knowingly stepped into dangerous waters. The internet has been buzzing ever since. Some argue Ariela was caught between her ties to two dangerous men. Others insist she was specifically targeted as part of a warning shot to 6ix9ine. And still, another faction believes Cartier himself was the real mark, with Ariela paying the ultimate price for her association. The presence of so many competing theories only deepens the mystery, leaving investigators with multiple threads to untangle and the public with endless speculation. In the end, one fact remains clear. Ariela's death wasn't just a tragic loss. It became another chapter in 6ix9ine's turbulent saga, a reminder that in his world, survival is never clean, and everyone close to him carries the weight of his choices. Whether she was an innocent bystander, a casualty of association, or an intended target, remains a question that continues to haunt both fans and investigators. What cannot be denied is that her passing has reignited the conversation about how far the shadows of 6ix9ine's past still reach, and how dangerous it can be to live in his orbit. Smoke, silence, and speculation. The swirl of theories surrounding Ariela's death has only deepened as investigators stay tight-lipped, creating space for speculation to dominate the conversation. One of the strongest narratives floating online is that Ariela was not the intended target at all. According to rumors, the bullets were meant for Tekashi, 6ix9ine himself, with her getting caught in the crossfire. This theory carries weight when lined up against the emotional Instagram tribute he posted shortly after her passing, calling her his sister despite swirling rumors of a romantic relationship. The timing and tone of those posts have led some observers to speculate that guilt may have been at play, with critics suggesting he knew their association might have placed her in danger. But this angle faces a major hurdle. Court records confirm that in 2025, 6ix9ine was bound by strict probation terms: house arrest with electronic monitoring, a travel ban, and heightened supervision following his federal drug plea in July. His movements were being watched closely, making it unlikely he was in New York at the time. This raises questions. Was the attack symbolic? Was Ariela a stand-in target to send him a chilling message? If that were the case, then the implications would go far beyond personal tragedy, pointing toward a coordinated attempt to undermine his sense of safety while highlighting his vulnerability through proxy violence. The second theory pushes the narrative even further into the realm of betrayal and retribution. Social media commentators and some street insiders have whispered about the so-called informant narrative. This speculation suggests Ariela may have been cooperating with law enforcement in some capacity, providing information about criminal activities around her. Though no official records or reports confirm this, parallels are drawn to 6ix9ine's own history as a cooperating witness in 2019. Observers argue that her close proximity to him could have shaped her perspective, with his own public defense of cooperation as a survival tactic, possibly influencing those within his circle. This possibility, while unverified, resonates with how street justice often operates, where even rumors of informing can lead to devastating outcomes. In past high-profile cases, individuals suspected of giving information to law enforcement have been targeted regardless of whether evidence supported those claims. The streets don't always wait for proof. Perception often outweighs reality. In Ariela's case, the narrative that she may have followed 6ix9ine's path has lingered precisely because of his open acknowledgement that he sees cooperating with the authorities as a smarter choice than staying silent. His stance has been controversial from day one, dividing opinions between those who view it as pragmatic and those who consider it the ultimate betrayal. A third dimension adds yet another layer of complexity: the environment of violence in New York around the time of Ariela's death. Reports confirm that just days before her killing, a nightclub in Brooklyn erupted in gunfire involving 4 shooters, leaving at least 42 shell casings behind. Law enforcement confirmed that this was gang-related, and the city braced for cycles of retaliation. Mayor Eric Adams publicly announced the deployment of crisis management teams to prevent an escalation, while NYPD officials acknowledged the growing concern over gang-related disputes spilling into public spaces. While no direct link between this incident and Ariela's death has been proven, the timing has sparked theories that her killing was connected to this broader climate of hostility, where lines between personal disputes and wider gang conflicts often blur. For 6ix9ine, perception has always been the battleground. His reputation in the streets is complicated, marked by his decision to testify against the 9 Trey Gangsta Bloods in 2019. earning him the snitch label that continues to follow him. The fact that Ariela was publicly linked to him, whether romantically or through friendship, inevitably placed her in a high-risk category. As one commentator bluntly put it, if you can't reach the man, you touch the people around him. This way of thinking aligns with a long-standing tactic in street conflicts, where targeting associates becomes a strategy to send a message when direct confrontation is off the table. What further complicates matters is the absence of transparency from authorities. To date, no detailed forensic report has been released, no information about the number of shots fired, no official timeline of events, and no insight into whether surveillance footage captured any suspects. This silence has created the perfect storm for competing narratives. Online forums, blogs, and even mainstream outlets have filled the void, each pushing its own theory about what truly happened on that August morning. In an era where social media can amplify unverified claims into viral truths, the lack of concrete answers has only ensured that speculation thrives. Adding to the intrigue are 6ix9ine's own words in previously circulated footage, where he spoke about how street figures he considered solid still lost their lives. He cited names like Nipsey Hussle, King Von, and Pop Smoke as examples of how even those who never cooperated with authorities ultimately ended up victims of street violence. His message was clear: loyalty to the code doesn't guarantee survival. To his critics, these statements were proof of arrogance and insensitivity. To his supporters, they highlighted his pragmatic worldview, a philosophy that survival comes before reputation. When these comments are lined up against Ariela's death, they take on a chilling resonance. If perception and reputation mean little in the face of danger, then Ariela's tragedy becomes emblematic of that very belief. Her association with 6ix9ine, whether as a friend, sister figure, or romantic partner, made her part of his world, and by extension, part of the risks that come with it. As it stands, Ariela's death remains under investigation, with no arrests announced and no clear suspects identified. The unanswered questions leave space for conspiracy theories to flourish, while her family, friends, and followers continue to mourn her as more than just a headline. In the end, the case highlights the uneasy overlap between celebrity, street politics, and the dangers of perception in a world where association alone can become a fatal liability. What remains undeniable is that Ariela's story is bigger than one tragedy. It is a reflection of the dangers that hover over those caught in the crossfire of fame, loyalty, and survival in a culture where the lines between the streets and the spotlight are blurred beyond recognition. A target in the shadows. The puzzle of Ariela's death grows stranger with each passing day, and the official silence has only fueled the storm. According to Westchester County Police Chief James Luciano, investigators believe the shooting was tied to criminal activity, though specifics remain undisclosed. This acknowledgement rules out the idea of a random act and places the tragedy firmly in the category of targeted violence. Still, as of August 18, 2025, no arrests have been made, no suspects named, and no motive publicly shared. For a case with this much public attention, the lack of clear answers raises questions about whether investigators are holding back critical details, or whether they are running into roadblocks not yet revealed. Ariela's discovery inside a vehicle on the Cross County Parkway at 8 a.m. added another layer of intrigue. The location is one of the busiest arteries connecting the Bronx to Westchester, lined with surveillance cameras and usually bustling with commuters. Yet, according to multiple sources, no direct witnesses have come forward, and no surveillance footage has been released. The timing suggests either a fleeting encounter or meticulous planning that exploited blind spots along the route. Allegedly, such calculated timing has parallels in prior cases where organized groups have carried out precision strikes in heavily monitored areas. The broader backdrop cannot be ignored. Reports confirm that in early 2025, New York saw an uptick in gang-related incidents, including a Brooklyn nightclub shooting where at least 42 casings were recovered, with law enforcement labeling it a gang dispute. While Ariela's death has not been directly linked, the overlap in timing has strengthened speculation that her killing could be part of these escalating cycles of retribution. Then there is the question of 6ix9ine himself. Bound by house arrest and electronic monitoring following a federal plea deal earlier in 2025, it is highly unlikely he was in New York without detection. This creates a contradiction. If he was not physically there, then the attack may have been symbolic, designed to send a message, or a case of mistaken identity. The pattern fits with what experts describe as proxy violence, where associates or loved ones become stand-ins when direct access to the intended target is limited. Compounding this are the repeated threats against him earlier in the year. The fake casket left outside his Florida home in February, reportedly marked with the name of a rival, served as a chilling reminder of how far adversaries were willing to go. Combined with his history of public feuds, calling out contradictions in the hip-hop community, challenging reputations, and reigniting old tensions, these factors allegedly made anyone close to him a potential pawn in a larger game of intimidation. According to cultural commentators, including voices from podcasts like No Jumper, his cooperation with law enforcement has placed a permanent spotlight on his circle. "It just won't stop," one host noted, suggesting that every move, every association, becomes another flashpoint. In a culture where silence is sacred, 6ix9ine's history of testimony remains a sore spot. And for Ariela, proximity to that spotlight may have carried risks too heavy to bear. Tributes, tensions, and an open wound. The contradictions that define 6ix9ine's public persona, defiant, confrontational, and unapologetically provocative, were once again on full display in the aftermath of Ariela's death. His sharp questioning of old affiliations and alleged inconsistencies in others' reputations exposed the raw tension he continues to stir within hip-hop circles. According to critics, this relentless pursuit of calling out perceived hypocrisy, while simultaneously embracing his own vulnerability, only deepens his polarizing image. It also raises a troubling question. Does aligning with him make someone inherently unsafe in an environment where perception often outweighs reality? The timing of his tributes to Ariela only complicates matters. With sentencing for his July 2025 guilty plea to illicit substance charges looming in September, any public declaration carried significant risks. Legal analysts note that defendants awaiting sentencing are often advised to remain cautious with their public statements, as even seemingly unrelated remarks can potentially influence court outcomes or attract renewed federal scrutiny. The fact that 6ix9ine pressed forward with his emotional posts suggests one of two possibilities. Either grief overrode his usually calculated approach, or he had ulterior motives in shaping the narrative before speculation could implicate him. Observers remain split, with some pointing to guilt and fear, while others emphasize genuine loss in a world where he has few confidants. Meanwhile, Ariela's death sent ripples through the wider community. Tributes poured in from well-known venues where she worked, such as Icon New York and Starlets of New York. Both establishments posted heartfelt Instagram memorials, describing her as a radiant figure whose joy, humility, and presence left an undeniable impact. For many who knew her personally, the loss was not just tied to her connection with 6ix9ine, but also to her own growing influence in nightlife culture. The Dominican community, both in New York and abroad, has also mourned deeply. Online spaces were flooded with messages of love and sorrow, painting Ariela not only as a figure linked to hip-hop drama, but also as a young woman with cultural roots and ties that stretched far beyond one artist's orbit. Community organizers have emphasized that her death highlights the broader wave of violence affecting young women of color, connected, directly or indirectly, to high-risk social circles. Yet despite the outpouring of emotion, the investigation remains clouded. Authorities have confirmed only the basics. Ariela La Langosta was discovered shot inside a vehicle on the Cross County Parkway on August 17, 2025. Westchester County Police and the NYPD are treating the case as a suspicious homicide linked to criminal activity. Beyond that, details remain scarce. No suspects have been publicly identified, no arrests made, and the motive remains a mystery. This silence has created fertile ground for speculation. Was the attack a direct message to 6ix9ine? Was it rooted in Ariela's own associations? Or was she tragically caught at the crossroads of larger conflicts consuming New York's underworld? What remains undeniable is the wound her death has left. It is a story of public tributes, private suspicions, and an investigation that continues to leave more questions than answers. And until clarity emerges, the streets and the internet will keep buzzing. Do you think that Ariela's demise is in any way connected to her association with 6ix9ine? Share your thoughts in the comments below. Hit the like and subscribe buttons. Turn on the notification bell to be notified of our latest uploads. Thanks for watching.